Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Deric DeBarr, and you're here for a presentation on Chromalox product overview. Hopefully you can all hear me and everything's going well. And we will get started. There's a large breadth of product. I'm going to walk through it. I got a lot of slides, examples, a little bit of video, and hopefully cover everything that we do here. All the markets and things that we serve. It's important to see all the products that are out there. And a lot of times people know us for one or two, specific items, markets, or type of product, and don't realize that the pure breadth of product that Chromalox does offer all your applications for all your heating needs. To start off with, my name is Deric DeBarr. I'm the field sales training manager here at Chromalox. I have various years in sales and design and all that stuff. And I'm just going to walk you through this journey. So who we are, again, we're an electrical heating company. That's pretty straightforward. We are the oldest electric heating company in the market. A lot of technologies, a lot of products, and a lot of different types of solutions in the industry have all stemmed from our work over the years. To start to narrow it down, and we'll have application presentations in customer presentations later. But for today, I'm going to stick to the actual products. We break those into essentially three buckets. We have our industrial heaters and systems, which would be your tank heaters, your immersion heaters, your heat transfer systems, steam generators. Component technologies is what we reference to our smaller parts, controllers, SCRs, laminate heaters, more of your OEM type processes and customers, to our heat trace industry. Now, we're kind of an all-in-one heating company, and we have all these products available, and I'm going to walk you through those. As far as third party goes, and like I mentioned, the actual patents and designs and stuff like that, a lot of those fall back to our company, and we'll dive into those deeper in future presentations. So just a quick overview like that. Moving forward, let's go through the heating products. Now, it's important to, and I tell everyone this, at the very basic part of our company, we make industrial resistors. Now, we manufacture them from scratch. We do the coil windings, the filling, the materials, and all that stuff, which allows us to do a wide variety of options and designs that may meet your application. But when you break it all down, it falls into, we make industrial resistors, and how we apply them in the application becomes some of the, advising we offer our customers and clients, and give you more security and more comfort that you're working with a company with this level of history, experience, and knowledge. Up on the top left, that is the original heating patent from our company. Basically, the nichrome wires the resistor. We pack it in magnesium oxide or ceramic or various other products. Then you have a metal sheath. It falls into various products that we're going to walk through, but you can kind of get the gist of it from this picture. Essentially, it turns into a heat exchanger, right? In various designs and layouts. So, like I said, this is going to be a quick walkthrough and run through of everything. So we've got tubular heaters, strip heaters, immersion heaters, laminate heaters. Let's talk about that for a second. I often refer to these as the duct tape of the heating industry. Strip heaters. These are great for your tanks, your vessels, and it's just essentially a heating bar. Now we design those to various temperatures and sheaths to match your application. This has been in the industry for 100 years. These type of designs. It's extremely durable and very you can modify it to fit what you need based on your application. From there, you've got the tubular elements, which ASME considers it a solid rod when you go to design it. But based on that winding, that thing you saw earlier, we can change the output based on Ohm's law. So your resistance, that's what we're controlling. Back to we make industrial resistors. Now we can make your oven elements, your heat exchanger. We can design pretty much around any application that that is presented to us, and then we will have the unique designs and materials to match up to your process. From there, we have single-ended cartridge heaters. These have more of a ceramic core design. These are popular in plastics industries and molds and platens and those type of applications, and we have a full line, diameter, sizes, all that stuff for the entire industry. You take it a little further, we got band heaters. And again, we're going to dive into all these deeper in later presentations, but band heaters fall more along your plastics and ovens and extrusion type applications. And we do, mica, aluminum, ceramic, all your different versions of that based on your temperatures and your applications. From there, we have flexibles, which would be your silicon laminate, your Kapton designs based on your temperature, and we have wire wound designs available. We have we call it etched foil for your high volume flatter designs. An application that these fall into that people don't often realize is panel heating. Is a real popular application for this as well. It lays into the trough of the panels and maintains temperature and drives out condensation. But you find this in a wide variety of applications that we're involved in, and we can provide expertise to. From there, taking it a little further, speaking of enclosure heaters, we also make hazardous rated ones for your oil and gas applications, power gen. Again, wide variety and great breadth. Now, I try to mix this up as we go. We have industrial heaters, and there's industrial air heating, process heating, tank heating. We'll start with the air heating, for instance. So you take those original components and now you add fins. You're increasing the surface area, right, and dissipation of heat. So now they become air heaters. You'll find these in various applications to railway cars, to comfort heating, to process heating, higher temperatures, drying applications, really common. Speaking of drying applications, most people don't realize we do duct heaters as well. So you have duct heaters available not only for comfort, but for process. I mean, temperatures up to 800 degrees outlet temperatures, and depending on the design conditions, these are base model designs. We can go much higher. It's just a matter of how we design and to fit your application. And again, we carry third party and all that. Radiant heaters, if you increase the intensity of the element, now it begins to radiate. We have a full line of not only process radiant heaters, but comfort radiant heaters. And some customers don't realize that falls into our wheelhouse as well. And so speaking of those, it leads us into the comfort heater line, which again, we have a whole, depending on which product segment you're in, some people don't realize all the different products we touch. So we've got the general purpose comfort heaters, which you obviously find in warehouses and buildings and bus depots and all that, to portable units that are used in rental industry and various applications that applies to wastewater treatment and corrosion resistant types. We call them our washdown heaters. These are stainless steel, NEMA 4X. So if you're in an industrial application, this becomes quite common in the spec. Two are hazardous rated blower heaters, which some of you may be familiar with. There's a few designs out there. One thing I would point out with this, and we'll dive into it much deeper in another presentation, but the thing I see with these most commonly is there's a couple little nuances of design based on the automatic reset versus the manual reset, the elevation of installation, and there's several things to consider when purchasing your hazardous rated blower heaters that you may not realize unless you talk to an expert or somebody here at Chromalox to walk you through the exact options that you want to choose. And that kind of falls true to a lot of our products as we go through here. Comfort heating, simple convection heaters to hazardous rated convection heaters. These are pretty much the industry standard in power plants and oil and gas, where the heating element is rated to a certain AIT rating and temperature code, and they meet the class 1 div 2 area classifications without any consideration on your side whatsoever, just the output you need and the space requirements that you have. We do have duct heating that's not only traditional heating elements like we've seen so far, to even open coil designs. So you may not realize that we offer those as well. I'd mentioned before radiant heaters. We have an entire comfort line. So you think loading docks and driveways and all that. That is a product that is a standard catalog product for us as well. Now, moving on, and like I said, I was kind of breaking up how I did this instead of walking through the catalog. Tank heating. This is something that we'll definitely dive into deeper in later presentations, but I kind of wanted to walk you through all the options available to tank heating. As your years go by and you learn more about the industry and how these things are applied and how they're put together, it becomes increasingly important to remind everyone that there's several ways to heat a tank or heat a process or heat a batch or whatever you're working on. And that's where this kind of circulation immersion heater falls into play. And it's not just a heater in a tank, right? We're able to modify, manipulate, and craft solutions to all your tank heating needs, quite frankly, based on just the different technologies and the different ways we compile our products together. So, and that was our just general arrangement drawing of all the different options. You've got direct immersion heaters like screw plugs and flanged heaters. That's just connection sizes. A lot of times these fall into the mechanical. So if there are some engineering companies on the call, which I know there are, it fits up in the mechanical side of things, but it's an electrical heating element. So you may not consider the watt density, how it's going to transfer the heat, the size, the type of mode, the flow rates. But so direct immersion is I would argue, one of the, if not the most efficient option in your application. Again, all applications are different. There's little nuances to consider, but all the heat it's generating is going into your process. So your efficiencies are extremely high, but you do have to consider, what am I heating? How am I heating it? Are the materials compatible? So that becomes part of that. Now, if there could be a concern, and there's several regulations depending on the industry you're in, of having replaceable elements or removable elements, or in a well, we have standard bolt-on designs that carry all third parties that meet these requirements. And you can think of NFPA, there's API regulations where these actually meet those regulations without any extra extra design on your part. You simply need to provide a connection to your tank, and our product installs onto that. And with that, there's various terms that fall into this, and this is where some confusion comes across a lot of times when we do get requests. Somebody will ask for a bayonet heater or a replacement heater. Again, they're all electric heaters, and how they transfer heat can be a little bit different. Are they direct immersion? Are they in a well? Are they in a heat transfer design? And that's what you have to ask yourself when you're doing tank heaters. Now, the good thing is, if you're talking to Chromalox, we do have all the options available. It's where you want to craft what is the best solution for you and your customer or yourself in your application. And I would encourage all of you to consider that when you're looking at a heating application and what is the right product for what I'm doing. That said, here's a couple quick examples. Sometimes people will build it's basically a heat transfer system in their tank, where they have to have the heater can't be in direct contact. And I have various examples that we'll see throughout a lot of these trainings. This tells a story here on the left. They basically, you fill that with a fluid, you're heating the fluid's inside a separate chamber, so it's not in contact with what's in the tank. Okay, true, that meets what you're doing, but they may not have realized we have those LTFX, STFX designs that meet that regulation, and you don't have to mess with heat transfer fluid whatsoever. Oh, by the way, this is actually a great example of, we get a lot of customers, clients, end users who buy our standard catalog products, not considering how they actually go together. Something when we dive into actual design criteria later, there's a cold section, right? A cold pin. So where that heating coil or that nichrome wire starts to heat, and where your electrical connection is, and that's inclusive of the element. If you get something out of the catalog, or you don't consider something like that, you can even see in this picture, and like I said, it's a great example, they basically cook the outside of the nozzle, and none of that heat's getting into the tank. These are some of the little nuances of tank heating that you really have to consider when you're looking at your application. Maybe it's scope and supply, and you don't want to worry about the install. We can offer package systems with the controllers already on them, mounted together, and a lot of those things that people don't realize are a standard offering of Chromalox, but may not know to ask or may not know who to go to. So hopefully that will give you some more ideas there. over the side heaters. And these get as unique as they need to be, because a lot of times the tank already exists. We have an entire line of over the side heaters where we can modify our heater to fit the tank that's already in existence. Maybe the tank wasn't designed to house a heater originally and was left off and is kind of an afterthought to add after the case. And that's where we can kind of get really creative and build something that works for you, and take the emphasis off modifying the tank as much as meeting the heater to the application. This is a good example of one that goes right through a manway. So we have that option available. So our catalog doesn't stop at what you see on the pages. You just need to talk to somebody here at Chromalox, and we may already have a design available for you. It's just not, you didn't flip the page or look further into it. Heating, you've heard this is kind of like a sidecar heating or external heating of the tank. So a circulation sense, you can utilize the pumps already available to the tank. You can make a bypass, run it through a heater. Again, more options, more design criteria that we can offer as a thermal advantage to whatever you're trying to do. So I encourage you to talk to us. Further, the heat transfer systems, we have packaged heat transfer systems that come with the pump, which come with the flow. You may already have an existing system or an exchanger in the tank, but we can utilize that with one of our products, and you basically simply bolt it on and continue heating. We can also offer designs for turn down or even taking your main system offline. A lot of those situations are coming up more and more as we move towards an electrification of things, and since we're an electric heating company, that falls right in our wheelhouse. So there's a lot of considerations that we're seeing daily that we didn't used to see as options, and Chromalox has a product or an offering that can really fit into that wheelhouse for you. Steam generators is an underutilized product here at Chromalox. Traditionally, it would be a gas-fired system, a burner type system, but we have electric steam generators and superheaters that go with those. And I'm not talking small units, I'm talking facility size steam generators that you can utilize. And in the last 10 years, we've kind of even crafted these because, a big concern would be install base and your cost install capital costs. And you think of the electrical distribution and how to do that. Well, quite frankly, we have a new product called DIRECTCONNECT where we're running off of the 4160, the 6900 volt direct to our elements. So now we've eliminated, we'll say, some of those hurdles to offer an electrical option to the market. And in tank heating or a tank farm or facility, it's certainly something to consider. And I'm going to show you some pictures and some video on that here in a second. Now, again, back to the pad heaters, you take some of those components. We have options available. You can see there in some of the examples. We can certainly go as simple as just strapping something to the side of the tank to modify that. And then, of course, heat trace, which I'll talk a little bit about more here when we get some time. And then, obviously, we're going to have some deep dives later in some of our later presentations. But heat trace is always an option. And it's, quite frankly, we have, more heat trace on our shelf in Tennessee than more than you could possibly want, and we have the different types, and I'll walk through that. But I will, sticking with the tank heater section of this presentation, I would argue that if you are going to heat trace a tank, maybe we have some other options: tank heater, immersion heater, other types of options to at least consider. So I would talk to your Chromalox representative, let you walk through that. Interestingly enough, it wouldn't be considered normally a tank heating, but back to the comfort heating, I've seen comfort heaters used for tank heating. You're heating the room. If the room doesn't get below a certain temperature, then guess what? You don't have to heat your tank. So that's certainly an option. And here's some straight examples from the field I can show you. Obviously, I'm in Colorado, if you can imagine by some of the notations, but we see it all the time. And so that's certainly an option. So tank heating, I kind of took that a little bit different direction, but I want to dive into that more in future presentations. But I want to encourage everyone on the call to consider multiple options when selecting your tank heater or what's available to you. Now, to break up the presentation just a little bit, we'll kind of jump to a little bit of video to give you some idea of our abilities and stuff. You can see these special design ones here. We're an in-house hazardous area designed immersion heater. We do our own terminal housings. You can see the standoff there. Here's an over-the-side heater that I just mentioned, 2 of them back to back, going into special designs. This is basically all work in progress. There's some tote heaters on the bottom left. If you look here on the right, so this is where we get a little unique. You can see those baffles in the system. And what we're doing there is we're increasing the residence time of the heat. So that's a case where we want more heat to get into the process than maybe the flow allows. And that's some of the expertise that we can apply to the design. Besides buying something out of the catalog, help us increase your efficiency and make it better. To take that just a little bit further without getting too off the direction of products, we have our catalog, we have our standard products you see on the website, but it goes much further than that. If you give us your application details and get into design, and what you're actually seeing here is a baffle design. So when the elements go in there, but if you notice, those baffles are now changing the flow through the vessel, and you can even see where they even space out, right? We're changing the flow, and we're also changing the heat profile of how that heat is transferred. So depending on the process, depending on the material, we can craft something specific to your needs. And so that's where I want everyone to take away from this presentation, the capabilities and products that we have to apply to them. Taking it a step further, we have our package systems. And in our package systems, we have the steam generators that I mentioned, the heat transfer systems. So you got heat transfer oils, water, glycol, whatever that is. But we can take it so much further to, you take the scope of your P&ID and your packaging, and we've got safety relief valves, valving, interconnecting piping, and wiring can be done in-house, where a whole package that you're working on can be delivered and installed rather than done in the field, and can save a ton on labor and burden and even startup, because this stuff gets tested before it leaves the facility. Now, as that scope grows, or that we provide more products, in this case, this is a steam superheater, and you can see all the valves and sensors and the bypass and all that. We can go from providing that initial, we'll say just, industrial resistor, right, to crafting the whole process into one skid. And we're doing more and more of this as the requirements increase in the ability to do in-house. We have those capabilities, and then they just get larger from there. This is a 4 megawatt design with power distribution and stuff like that. And where I'm going with this as an example is the technology I hinted to earlier about DiRECTCONNECT. So think of your medium voltage transmission lines that are running down the highway and going into your facilities. You don't need the step down transformers, and what that's done over the years is now we're starting to offset traditional boiler houses, central boiler systems for facilities. It doesn't have to be on, say, this quite a scale as this slide indicates. It can be on a much smaller scale, but pretty much any place where traditional gas-fired units were in there, because quite frankly, the fuel was cheap, but the emissions costs, the permitting costs, and all those, you can go down the laundry list of other costs that fall into this beyond the product. It's all, but if we do it electrically and we do it right, and think of some of the various we'll say market trends that are out there, if we can do that specifically electrically, we don't need a burner, we don't need an exhaust, we don't need, and quite frankly, the efficiencies on these things are tremendously decreasing as you have to go in and you have to have maintenance and cleaning and all that stuff, and we get away from that. And so the trend in the last 5 or 10 years, especially in our industry, is having this technology. Those industries that traditionally went this way with gas burners and standpipes and all that, is now we have an option that electrically that makes sense, not only technically, but also economically, which is huge. And we've been doing a lot of test cases for this, which is really fun. And just to give you some examples and just kind of a walkthrough, it's quite frankly not a lot different than the low voltage stuff that we already do. but just it's increased scale, but it's still so much more compact to what a traditional gas-fired unit would be. So this unit you're looking at here, and we call them bundles, and this would go into another vessel. This would be a true direct connect design. You're looking at 4 megawatts of power in essentially a 20-foot unit, 20 foot long. And to give you a better idea of the scale, you take that same unit and we build the vessel to go with it. There's no, well, first of all, there's no burner, so you're not feeding the gas. There's no permitting required, quite frankly. It's still ASME designed. It doesn't have to be maintained quite the same way. There's no regulations for where this goes. You can even put it out outside the building. You can do a lot of locations that you couldn't do traditionally with gas-fired systems. And this is just to kind of give you an idea of the scale and how compact it becomes on the output. So I just wanted to kind of illustrate that, and then back to the install of this stuff and why I want you all to consider this if you do have larger heating requirements. You know, a low voltage, you think Ohm's law, you think conductor size and NEC, it gets a little carried away. And this is an example of that where, you know, years ago, this control bank was 2.4 or 2.5 megawatts actually per bank in a larger application that we worked on. And just look at the interconnecting wiring and raceways that fall into that. And this was a 6-circuit design, and you can see how big the conductors are. Well, if we increase the voltage, we actually have it's actually a 9-to-1 ratio on the number of circuits and wires gauge size. And so nothing to do with the product we're offering or a product line that we have, but if you go with this product for the larger applications, your install gets significantly impacted. This is a 2.4, so essentially a similar bank heater and output running through a 2.5-inch conduit to wire it up. So you can imagine the impact of that. So again, more of an advertisement for today of all the products that we offer, but that is certainly something that is underutilized in industry, and it's growing faster every day. So segue from that, we'll get into our controls, and we have a full line of DIN control, not only panel mounted, but sub-panel mounted DIN controllers that also come with power switching capabilities and inputs, outputs. Now, not only do we have these available to put into your process, we obviously utilize them for our own controls, right? So it allows us to get really creative with our designs, and we have a full panel house. We have SCR banks up to 1200 amps in one box. I mean, you think of this, just the real estate in the panel that saves you, and it doesn't even have to be driving one of our heaters. We've got sub-panel mounted switching units, our whole C4 product line that's available. Really unique. It doesn't even have to go to, we'll say, the heating industry. It's just maybe something to consider if you're on the line and that's something that you work on for process. In our world, obviously we're controlling electric heaters, so we'll do it one of two ways. You can go with the contactor method, you know, on-off control, or we have, obviously I was just talking about the solid state relays that fall into our SCR packages, and then therefore we can literally dial our heaters down to the specific output and craft them to your process to perfectly match your needs. Obviously sensors to control all of that through the controlling, and then we have our heating cable line. So we've walked through a lot of products already, but I'm going to touch on heating cable here really quick, because we're going to have a much deeper dive into this into the months prior, in a factory training program that I would hope all of you would be interested in or have some participation. So our goal is to cover pretty much everything of electric heat, and specifically to heat trace. So you'll know how to not only, what it is, how it works, but also how to design it. What is a good install? What is a bad install? So, running through the products really quick. Obviously, we've got design guides and process things that you're more than welcome to, and you'll find them on our website. But heating cable, this is the self-regulating line. We have all the temperatures available. Again, it's all rating on those for everybody. Just to remind you, the rating on self-regulating cable is usually, depending on the manufacturer, is between 40 and 50 degrees F. And that's that output per line. It obviously changes output based on temperature it sees or creates, and we'll obviously dive into that into later presentations. But then you have, what would be your standard freeze protection, which would be your SRL, your lower temperature stuff. We have an SRP for processes up to about 230 degrees F. And again, maintain temperature. We have our SRME for, higher temperature stuff. This goes up to 425 exposure temperatures, which is really common. And then here's something I want to point out to everyone. Cable's cable, and you get the right design, and we could talk about quality and stuff, which we'll show you in a later presentation. But how's it installed, and what is a good install? And we have our various levels of connection kits, but I'm going to talk a little bit about our U series, so everyone's kind of aware of what's going on here. So use essentially for universal. If I was to blow up that cover there, you'd see that we have approvals, globally, and hence the universal designation. But ours go together. Everyone has their own unique little stuff. Ours has a grommet. And this is really useful when it comes to installing it, as in if you're installing it in the field, it allows for a much better install. It's easier to put together, and it is quite unique in how you put it together. Makes for a nice clean install and easy to use. And we'll have contractor training that goes with that, and videos to follow and stuff, but something to kind of point out. So it doesn't necessarily look like everybody else. There are some little nuances. We have our older model designs that are kind of a lower profile. Those are still available. And then, of course, all the, we'll say, lower cost, less industrial options that still carry third party, but they are available. Like any other heat trace manufacturer, we have your Class 1 Div 1 heat trace. Not that it's a whole lot different in designs, but does carry all the certifications that go with that. Now we have the low temp, the medium temp. The only real difference we're going to have here is that your connection kit has to be rated for Class 1 Div 1. So obviously you're going to have the, the isolation, the EYS seals and stuff that go part of that, and that is certainly part of that. We can go into that more detail. Constant wattage, we have that available if you're doing freezer floors or concrete melting or any of those type processes. That's of course a part of it. We do have what we call series long line cable, which is for your longer runs of single circuits for your distribution lines and that type of thing. We do have a full line of MI cable for your higher temperatures. It is good for Class 1 Div 1. We have design software and installation and some of the examples we can certainly share with you there, and some of the other ancillary products that go with a good install of MI cable. That is all available through Chromalox. Now, some of our controls, we have some of the ones that, well, quite frankly, everyone else has. And we have some that are a little unique to us. One in particular would be this, we call it our DTS, hazard rated, because it does carry the Class 1 Div 2 area classification. This is a little unique to industry, and something that maybe you want to bookmark for later if you do heat trace. This is a power connection kit and an SSR, solid state relay, in the same box. It has not only visual indication of power, it has numeric temperature indication as well. It has a alarm signal available, but it goes on the power where the circuit starts on the heating cable. So you're replacing your power connection kit, so you're saving money there, and you can go up to 30 amps of solid state relay, which it's basically it pulses the heat trace on, and there's some methodology behind it. I can go into detail, but it's not, obviously it's still powering at the full power, 120, 240, whatever you're running. But because it pulses the heat trace on, not full on, full off at first. When it comes up, it ramps. So it's not necessarily a true soft start, but it acts as a soft start to the inrush current, and you avoid that whole tripping of traditional connections on heat trace. And quite frankly, that's usually the one major pain point about power connections and heat trace design. From there, we have some more sophisticated designs that are in tighter packages, all with the same interface, which didn't used to be the same for Chromalox. We've done that in the last few years to make things uniform and easy to use. And you can even see a picture of the indication there. There's 1 and 2 circuit small box designs like this. We call them our ITCs. And then they expand into our IT-AS and IT-LS. AS is just ambient sensing, LS is line sensing. They come in buckets of 6. but they're kind of bolt-ons from there. So you can go all the way up to 36, 72 circuits in a small package, and it's all kind of done for you. So, and I've seen people utilize these for other designs that even include tank heating. From there, you've got your sensors, and we've got wireless and wired and all that. And oh, by the way, a lot of people don't realize we also have an entire commercial line of heat tracing products, and it's fairly similar along the lines of the industrial stuff, but now we're carrying all the commercial certifications, and there's a lot of training and design software that we provide as well. Constant wattage, or aka zone heating, available, and again, similar products, but now in a commercial setting. So I'm probably most of your industrial on the call, but you come across both, right? Mat heating's available. Again, some of the connection kits are some of them are actually unique to the commercial market, and we have available, and I'd look into that as well. Again, controllers, very similar. You walk through that scenario. Then design and layout. We do have the ability to do design and layout for you. We also like to provide the training and information behind the scenes to help you assess and be able to craft a good install on your own. And, you know, various examples that fall along with that, how the proper way to do valves. And where I'm leading to with this is because there is a craft to this. I mean, I get heat's heat, but there's always a way to optimize your system and your process. And so whether we're doing it, like here's an example of us actually taking the heat trace and the heater and putting it all together in the skid, what I showed earlier in my presentation. But we can now, you know, do the ISO drawings, do the certification. Here's the design software. You're all more than welcome to it. We have trainings on that available. We're going to do a deep dive into this later about the production and the quality I mentioned, and how you can go about understanding what is a good quality cable and what isn't, and what to look for, so you truly understand it top to bottom. And by doing so, next month we're going to have, and it's free, we're going to start a factory trained heat trace installing program for our contractors and folks out there that truly want the certification, that they know what they're doing and they're doing it well, and they'll be able to sign off on it, and, you know, all that different stuff. And we're going to cover, you know, the techniques and testing and good install. So probably walk down the heat trace path a little further there than I should have, but that's for future things. So that was essentially the overview coverage of products available by Chromalox. And I thank you all for listening.